Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, wherever you are. My name is Muthi Nhlema, and I'm team leader with Baseflow, a local organization based in Malawi, but also the theme lead for Data for Action group of RWSN. I welcome you to my presentation, which will be a little different. Rather than subject you to death by PowerPoint, I'll be subjecting you to death by video. I'll be sharing with you my story and experience with systems strengthening. I was talking to a friend of mine from Ethiopia the other day, and we were having a conversation around how nonprofits have this knack, this capacity, this flexibility to migrate and change words to say something different, but it's things that we've been doing for the longest time. For example, system strengthening, according to this friend of mine, used to be known as rights based approaches because it was also looking at the system. But because the word rights is divisive in some parts of the world, systems strengthening is seen to be more politically correct and acceptable in some parts of the world. So at this point in the program, I'm sure you've been taken through the building blocks. Some people say they are 9, some people 11, some people 13. But the key point is that in every system, particularly in the water sector, there are specific building blocks that you need to address to ensure that the existing system, and in many parts of the world, that's the government system is strengthened to deliver the services that it needs to deliver to the general population. And today, I'm not going to talk about data as much as I have a lot of stories to share about data. I'll be talking about the infrastructure service delivery block of the building blocks. Because I have an experience where I've learned that has shaped my thinking when it comes to system strengthening. Because when we think about system strengthening, we often talk about frameworks, capacity, institutions, policies, practices. These are the words that are associated with system strengthening. But one thing that my experience in the WASH sector, specifically in system strengthening, has taught me is that there are certain words that we don't use, but those words are just as important as those other words I mentioned, like frameworks and policies and processes and capacity. And those other words are words like philosophy, culture, beliefs, emotions. These are words that we don't really use as often when we talk about system strengthening. But these are the things that influence the outcome of a lot of our system strengthening initiatives. So I wanted to share my experience of a time that I confronted and realized that even the system you're trying to strengthen may have a philosophy that you need to take into consideration as you're coming to do your system strengthening work. So just a bit of context before I launch into the story. Here in Malawi, the most common hand pump that is used is called the Afridev hand pump. For those of you who might not know what it is, it almost is similar to the India Mark II in some parts of the world, but it's very common here in Malawi. And Malawi has done an excellent job of standardizing rural water supply. And what I mean by that is that the Afridev hand pump is the most ubiquitous and common hand pump in rural Malawi. It's all over the place in most parts of the world. So the Malawi government, when it comes to system strengthening and standardizing infrastructure, the Malawi government has done an excellent job of having the Afridev hand pump as the standard hand pump for use. But like a lot of hand pumps across the world, across the rural world, a lot of these hand pumps break down. In Malawi, it hovers, a non-functionality rate hovers between 25 to 30% that are actually broken down. Now, there are lots of theories and studies that have suggested the cause of this. Now, for about 8 or 9 years ago, I came up with a hypothesis. And the hypothesis was that to strengthen the infrastructure service delivery building block, we needed to give consumers or water users the choice to choose the hand pump of their choice. Because if they choose the hand pump of their choice, they'll more likely own it and therefore more likely maintain it, rather than being given or imposed a hand pump technology that they may not actually want. So that was my hypothesis. So as part of this hypothesis, I secured funding from UNICEF, and we were implementing an innovation where we were going to give water users in a certain catchment area the choice of the hand pump that they would want. So there were several options, about 4 or 5 options. At the high end of the spectrum was the affidavit hand pump, the one that I mentioned, the standardized one that is very, very common and sort of high end in terms of hand pumps. At the low end of the spectrum, or the other end of the spectrum, was the rope and washer pump. So in between, there were other different hand pumps. And for each of these hand pumps, we calculated the life cycle costing to understand how much does it cost to maintain that hand pump per month on average. So we calculated that, and then we came up with a brochure. We linked up with the local government for the area that we were working in, and then we showed them the brochure. We took them through our hypothesis and what we were thinking, and they loved the idea, and they said, yes, we will support this project. So the local government were the ones who went out to sensitize the communities about the hand pumps that were available for them to choose from. And for budgeting purposes, we budgeted for the hand pump, for the high-end hand pump, that is the affidavit hand pump. So that's how we budgeted. So the local government went into the field, they sensitized and got everyone excited, and then it was time for the communities to choose the hand pump of their choice. And then we got a report back from the local government that the communities had chosen the rope and washer pump, the cheapest hand pump. And we were excited about this because we did think that cost was a factor in their choice. Cost would be a factor in their choice in terms of choosing a technology they can actually maintain without any trouble. Because, like I said, we believe that if they choose it, it means they own it and they will maintain it. Especially if they can afford to maintain it, and therefore the non-functionality would obviously be lower, and then you have a strengthened infrastructure service delivery in terms of the building blocks. So that was the idea. So there were 50 communities they went to. All 50 communities chose the rope and washer pump. So we were very excited. So we got a university to come in to document it, to kind of do an independent evaluation. And when they came back with the data, I sat with the university to hear what their findings were. And it turned out that none of the 50 communities were given an actual choice. The rope and washer was imposed on them. And which was strange because I was told that they were given a choice. So I went to meet the local government. We had a meeting, we had a discussion, and I asked them, why was this choice, were the communities given a choice? Was there a moment when you sat down and kept quiet and let the communities deliberate amongst themselves after you sensitized them to choose the hand pump of their choice? Did you do that? And the local government individual said something I'll never forget. He said, the choice of technology is something that a technocrat must do. We cannot leave that to the rural poor to make that choice. That's a philosophy. It was a belief that this government individual held, and most of the government extension workers held. And now, it's not that I'm not trying to denigrate it. It is simply what they believe. And when we were doing our planning, our risk management frameworks and all of that, we did not consider or take into consideration belief or philosophy, because they believe that if it's something technical, only they as technocrats can make the choice of the type of technology that could be put there. The choice of technology is a political choice. It cannot be a social choice. That was their philosophy. We did not take that in consideration because they believe that the rural poor cannot be left with this choice. They can't make this choice. We have to make it for them. And you find that in a number, and I'm sure in a number of experiences you may have had, you find that there's a belief or a philosophy. It's unwritten, it's unspoken, but it is there and it influences the outcome of system strengthening. It could be you coming in with trying to strengthen the market system with sanitation marketing, and you want the poor to pay for services, and you're working with the local government to strengthen the sanitation market, when actually the local government believes the rural poor should not pay for services. You're bringing a capitalist system in a socialist environment. Mismatch. And this experience, one last point. I'm sure some of you are wondering, but if the government did not believe or did not support the idea of community choice, that they are the ones who are supposed to do that, why did they want to go ahead with the project? That's a very good question. And one of the things I've learned in the years I've done system strengthening is that in most parts of my country, the district government will not turn away money. Even if they do not believe in the philosophy that's embedded within your system strengthening approach, they will simply accept it because the government is in a low resource environment and they will accept whatever money they can. They will rarely turn away money. Again, something we didn't consider. So philosophies influence the outcome of system strengthening initiatives. If you do not check, if you're not very careful in terms of the assumptions you're holding about your approach, what is the philosophy embedded within it? And does it match or mismatch with the system that you're going to strengthen? And if there's a mismatch, you may have to invest a lot of time in terms of sensitization, culture change, and really digging deep into how they can come up with how, to get them to see your point of view. It could be you can start with a small pilot to see how it goes rather than going large scale. So philosophy matters, beliefs matter, culture matters, because every system has a philosophy, has a culture, has a belief system that influences the outcomes. And these are unwritten and often unspoken. Thank you very much.